What's going on, guys? Alright, we are back in FreeCodeCamp building a camper leaderboard in ReactJS, no less. This is going to be fun. This is going to be the first React video I've made. I've been doing their course on the Udemy React Now degree, so I figured I'd knock out one of these. Now, what are we building? Well, we have two API endpoints that they provide us here. One gives us the top points by a user in the last 30 days, and the other gives us the top points of all time. So you'll see here, if we click this, it's all time. If we click here, it's past 30 days, and it swaps, right? I wonder what the lowest of the top 100 is for all time. I need to get myself into this list. That's why I was checking. I want to be in the list, baby. All right, so here we are. That's what we're building. I'm not going to be using CodePen to do this, but sweat not. If you are a CodePen person, I have faith that you'll be able to do this as well. We're going to be using the Create React app, so if you don't have Node and Git Bash installed, you're going to need that. So take a moment to do that. Now, I recommend if you're installing the Facebook Create React app for your build here to install it globally so you don't have to worry about that. Now, once you've installed it globally, go ahead and launch launch the application to be created, React-app, and the name of the folder. I think we'll call this FCC YouTube. That's what I'm going to call it. And so this will go ahead and generate our requirements for this, or generate our build for this. Oh, apparently you can't have capital letters, so we'll do it like this. So create it, name it whatever you want, leaderboard. We already have ours that we've pushed. And by the way, the code for this will be on my GitHub, which is Pizza Poker Guy. So if you are interested in looking at the source code for everything that I have here, it will all be there as well for you to reference. Alright guys, so that might have taken a minute. Now the next thing that we want to do that we've installed the React app with Create React app. So I'm going to just go ahead and CD into that directory real quick. So you'll see now that we're there. And then we want to install the packages that come with this. Now, there may be a few, and this may take a minute. After that, after it's done installing, we're going to install some of our own. So why this is going, it's going to be a minute. Let's talk about what we're installing and why. We're going to install Axios, S-A-X-I-O-S. The reason for that is it's essentially going to make it easier for us to do our AJAX calls. One of the issues I ran into when I was building this project was that our vanilla JavaScript AJAX calls were not setting the state of items efficiently, and it was causing issues with our UI. So instead of us having to worry about that, Axios has seemed to work much better with that, and that's what we're going to be doing there. So while we're at it, go ahead and do, I have Yarn installed, Yarn add rather. Yarn add Axios, we're going to add that as well. And the last thing that we're going to be adding is the React BootStrap. React BootStrap is React's version of BootStrap, and essentially it's taken all the cool aspects of BootStrap and it turned it into components that allows us to easily use them, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when we actually get into building out the table. That's where we use it, the table and the images. And it's very, very intuitive, very helpful. Now the documentation is great as well, so I encourage you to check that out. Now last thing we need to add is yarn add. And you can do this with npm install as well, but one of the reasons I am using Yarn, other than the fact that it's built into the React Create React app, is it's faster. My understanding, I don't have a detailed understanding of this, but my understanding is it will essentially fetch packages that you already have instead of having to go and get them, which makes it faster. That's instead of having to go and get them in a database somewhere. So that's my understanding of it. So those are the two packages we're going to need to install for this application on top of the Create React app. Now, while we're doing that, go ahead and open up wherever your React application is stored. So we have FCC YouTube right here. Very nice. And you'll notice that it comes with a bunch of great files, and we're going to be working primarily in app.js and index.css. Best way to test if everything's working properly is just go ahead and do yarn start, and it's going to launch our local machine. Now, another benefit to using the Create React app is it will actually have a page in your local host, right, where we're developing. It'll have it constantly refresh every time you make an update to your code, which is very beneficial in my opinion. So you don't have to, it's just it's those small things that make things go faster. So what you should be seeing is something similar if everything got installed correctly in terms of the Create React app, what we're about to see here. Almost there. And you'll see right here, starting development server. Compiled successfully, so it should load any second now. And bam. So this is the default that's coming out here in it. We're gonna go ahead and clear this out right now. You're gonna want to have this running pretty much the whole time for faster development. Now, I'm going to be jumping back and forth in between what's here and there to show you our progress as we go along. Now, first thing that we're talking about, we want to delete everything that's not this app. I'm going to treat this as if you guys have never used React at all before, which I imagine if you're watching this video, you're pretty new, right? So let's go ahead and delete what's in here in our app component. We also, the reason we're not deleting app here is if you go to your index.js, essentially this is where we're bootstrapping it at, and we're saying look for the document.getElementID by root, and then you'll see we have, this is where we're actually launching the application at app. Actually, app right here, we're launching app here, and then in index.html, excuse me, when we go here, you'll see that we have root. Sorry, I got that backwards. So basically, we're just injecting it into our root right there. Now for this, we can go, if we want to really get fancy, FCC leaderboard. We're killing it. All right, let's jump into the React aspect of it. So we're going to jump into app.js. So this is where we have to start figuring out what we need to do. This is where we're going to output the data. This is where we're going to output the UI and the data. And up here, we have to kind of define what we're going to use. So we know that we need two arrays right now. The one array that stores all the data for the 30 days of the most points on FreeCodeCamp, and the one that stores the top 100 times, top 100 times. Top 100 of all time. So we're going to create our state object here in our class. So we're just going to state, and we're going to set this into here. And in our state, we're going to call the top 100 days. We're going to set this to an empty array. And then we're going to have top 100 all time. Now this data actually is already pre-ordered, so we don't have to sort it, which is nice. Now, we have our state, so how are we going to get that state? Well, two things. We are going to use Axios to get our Ajax call. Now, first thing that we want to do here is we just want to say Axios. We need to import Axios first so that we can use it, right? Even though we have it installed, we haven't actually done anything with it. So we're going to import Axios from Axios. Just going to save that. And we can also, while we're at it, let's go ahead and get rid of this logo since we're no longer using it so that we don't get this error. So now that we've added Axios to our application, it's going to look, if you're familiar with jQuery, it kind of looks the same, right? It's just another service to call our data. So we're saying Axios.get, and what do we want to pass in there? Well, let's go ahead and get the most recent URL, which in this case is this URL. Now, we're going to write this in a get FCC data function, but right now all we want to do is we want to showcase that this works before we convert it into a function. So let's see Axios.get, and then, oops, other way around, .get, and then we say .then, so that's where we're going, right, to retrieve our JSON data. And in here, what we want to do, let me just go ahead and copy this real quick. What we want to do in our then is we want to pass in some data. This is our data object that's within the then. We have our callback function here. And we want to console.log data. Now, where are we going wrong here? So, we have our .get, then we have our .then, and we have our of course I mess up my typing. So we're going to copy pasta that in there real quick. And wham, bam, and we'll comment that out. And sorry guys, I fat fingered all this. Alright guys, so this is how I originally wrote my code, and for some reason I don't know where I was messing up my syntax here, but what I wrote was, this is going to be our getFCCData function, and it's going to get the URL that we're passing in, and then with the data we're going to do something with this. And this, we're going to pass in the state name, which is going to be top 100 or top 100 of all time, and then we're going to set that to the value. This will allow us to do our AJAX calls when the component loads. So normally when we call our AJAX calls, we want to do it with the component did mount. This is going to fire off after the application has loaded to start doing our AJAX calls. So component did mount, and in here, oops. In here, all we're going to do is say this dot get FCC data, and that's why our AJAX call wasn't loading there as well. So my mistake here is if we wanted to just straight up call it, we could actually just copy and paste this into component did mount. So in our get FCC data, the first thing that we want to pass in is that first URL here. And then the second thing is just a string for the name of the state that we want to change. In this case, our parameter is called state name, and we are going to pass in top 100 days, so the most recent. And then we are going to pass in, let's just go ahead and copy this one more time. We're going to call it a second time because we want the top of all time. So here we go, bam, bam, bam. Copy pasta. And top 100 all time. Now, just as an example to make sure everything's working, let's go ahead and jump back to here, go to inspect. We should get a console log of the same array that in the data here, because we hard coded that. So let's refresh that. Interesting. So let's see why our project isn't calling that. Console.log just one. See if it's actually getting hit. Interesting. Now I wonder if it's because we have nothing in our application. Sometimes you'll have issues here where you won't load anything. So let's go ahead and throw an H1 in here. Test. All right, so here is our spelling mistake right here. Our fat-fingered of component as to be expected. There we go. Now we should finally see our one loads, and then of course our array. So you'll see here we have a all-time point, the image for the user image, we have the last update, the recent 314, and then in terms of points, and then the username. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and continue on. So we're just going to be using one component, but because tables are kind of a pain to work in, everything has to be within the T body. But you can also probably take a little bit more time to write a second component called row or data row or anything like that. Now, this is where we're going to now use the table component from React. From React Bootstrap. Now you don't have to do this, but this is what I did when I talked with Stephen Mayu, who also has a coding channel, and he's kind of the guy I go to on occasion for React. I've also hired him for tutoring on occasions when I want to learn something pretty rapidly. I pay him for about an hour of his time, and we go and we hit the ground running, and it's very beneficial. I couldn't recommend him more. But here he recommended that I use React Bootstrap. Now, what we want to do is import the table component from React Bootstrap. Now, I believe we already installed this, if I remember correctly, so everyone should be on the same page. And we're taking it from the lib, and then we're going to import the table. Oh, and don't forget from. So now that we did that, let's go ahead and delete this H1. We're going to create a table component, not a table tag. Notice the capital T here. And this is just going to give us some nice styling as well. Now, how are we going to add that styling? They have props assigned to the CSS values, for instance. So we have striped. We also have bordered. We have hover. And condensed then hovered. These are all four things that are going to just add a little bit of nice swag to our table. Now I also added this class called color black, and this is just going to go along with our CSS that I'll be setting down the road. And let's go ahead and add that. Now notice that it's class name because React, obviously we can't use the word class because it's a reserved term in JavaScript. We're going to jump into index.css, and we're just going to go ahead and create a, app.css. We're going to go ahead and jump in app.css, and we're going to create our color black, which is just going to set the color of the font to black for our CSS that we're going to be adding down the road. Now again, you can style this however you want. I just put some basic coloring in mine. I usually don't worry too much about CSS. I don't really enjoy CSS. I enjoy the logic. I enjoy the JavaScript, the database stuff. That's the type of stuff I enjoy. So here we go. So we have our table. There's nothing in it at this point. Let's go ahead and bring it up. But there's nothing in it. We're going to add some stuff though, so don't sweat that. Uh-oh. I accidentally closed my thing. Now I do apologize, I forgot that we are actually going to add one more library. We're going to add the Font Awesome library as well. This is going to give us the carrots for when we click on our table to the dropdown. So go ahead and take a second to install that right now. And moving forward, what we're going to do is we are going to now just create our basic HTML for a table head, This is going to be our table head. Now, in our first row, we want our TR, right? So our table row, we just want to go ahead and we want to add in some TH tags for table head tags. Essentially table data, right? And we're just going to put the hashtag that's going to keep track of our number. And then below here, we are going to have another TH. This is going to be our camper head. Or excuse me, camper name. And while that's going, we'll go ahead and launch our yarn start again. And here we are going to have the, what was this, points in 30 days. And then here we are going to, oops, here we are going to have all-time points. Very nice. Now, in our table, we need a table body. This is going to be where we're going to be outputting our data, right? The body of our data. So let's go ahead and jump out of table head. And we're going to jump back down into table body here. And in table body, this is where all our real logic's going to go. Now, for the sake of this, we're going to start by just outputting, hard coding one of the arrays out. So let's take our top 100 days. Now we're going to be using a deconstructor here to just save us a little bit of typing. We're going to take const, and we're going to deconstruct this to take in top 100 days. So that instead of us having to say this.state.top 100 days every place we'd use it, we just go ahead and set this equal to this.state. And then we're going to do the same thing here for our top 100 of all time. So in our body here, what we're going to do is we're going to output our entire array with table rows and table data using the array function map. So we're going to say, take this, and we're going to say top 100 days, and we're map it out, right? Now, one thing that we're going to do is we're going to output the data, and then we're also going to, or each element, and then the second parameter, the index for our number that we're iterating through, and add one to that, because it starts at 0. Don't really like starting a list at 0, though, right? It's unnatural, except in programming. And so we have our return statement here. Let's go to bam. There we go. I like to break these up just to keep track of all my parentheses and all my curly braces. Now we have all our data. Now it's just a matter of creating our table rows. Now if you haven't used React before, what you're going to need to do, oops, I have one too many of these. If you haven't used React before, what you need to keep in mind is that you have to assign a key. This essentially is a primary key so that as these things get sorted, they have a unique value. In our case, it's going to be username. Now, I called this row, so we're going to set key is equal to row.username. Again, for when you output the array, you have to have a key to keep track of the data that you're outputting. So now we have our table row. And in our table data here, the first value we want to output, that's going to be index plus 1. This is just going to be, to keep track, right? The 0 to 100. Nice. And we're going to go ahead and copy this. Bam, bam, bam. And the next thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and output the image name. The image. And to do that, we're going to actually go ahead and import the image component from React Bootstrap as well. This is just going to give us some nice circle images to go on. It also, to a degree, as I've been using it, it makes it a little bit easier to follow your code when you start thinking of every aspect of your code as a component. So it's something about it's very, very easy for me anyhow to follow along. So but to each their own. Now, in there, they actually had it linked to the individual's FreeCodeCamp channel. So let's go ahead and create our anchor tag. In here, this is going to go to https://www.freecodecamp.org. It's now a .org, guys. They're moving on up. Good for them, right? And then we're going to go ahead and concatenate that. We'll use backticks here. So backticks will allow us to do our string interpolation. What that basically means is that we have a better way of creating strings with variables in it, and it's not going to be a complete pain in the ass. Why is my stuff breaking? Oh, we have to have our curly braces to do that. So make sure you surround it with curly braces first. Otherwise, it'll just think we're writing nonsense. And then so that we want to pass in our variable, in this case, our row.username, because that's the concatenation for what we're trying to do. So we have row.username. So you'll see here, save that, and that will take it to, that will be whatever that username is. And then in here, we want to pass in that image attribute that we just created. So our image component that we imported. And the source is going to be equal to the row.img, which that's the URL. And then in here we have this class name that I defined that was just called image height. The reason for that is the images that you get are like 800 pixels large, so we just got to bring it down a level. There's probably a class that goes, or a prop that goes with it. I didn't see one, but it very well could be. So in image height, I believe I set it to, let's see here, 50 pixels, I believe. Okay, so image height, let's define our class. In here we have height of 50 pixels. We also give it, we also float it to the left because I thought that looked better. Again, all this is optional. And then we have a border that goes around the image to make it pop out a little bit. Border of 1 pixel in width, solid, and then black for the color. So go ahead and save that. And the last thing that we need to do for this is we are going to use the circle property, and this is just going to make it circular. And finally, outside of that, we're just going to go ahead and add the username. This is going to be row.username. And we're almost done with our first example. Here we just put the most recent, that is the 30-day value, and then the data for row.allTime. Just going to save that, and I believe, assuming I don't have any syntax mistakes, we should see the first output of data. It's not going to be super clean or anything, but you can see right here we have our data. Nothing's jumping around. Now it should be styled. Oh, so one thing, this took me forever to realize. So hopefully you guys are still watching the video, is that you're only importing the components with React Bootstrap. If you actually want to use the stylings, you have to go ahead and link to that. And it doesn't actually come with the module. They just prefer that you use the latest one. So go ahead and take the link tag and throw it into the header. I'm going to pull this up here. So in your index.html file, that's in your public folder, go ahead and copy and paste the latest version into your React application. That'll give us the styling that we want right here. So we'll close this, and this should be much better now. So cool. So you see we have this very nice little hover effect, and it's looking much cleaner than it was before. You can see as we go. It might be hard to see with everything that's there. I might just leave it like this for the video, because I actually think it looks better than the awful styling I put on it. So make sure you add the bootstrap. Now, let's get back down to the logic. Forget about how it looks for the time being. We are going to accept here. Let's go ahead and add container. So I hate that it goes to the end. So we'll add the container, which will bring everything in, right? So that's good. All right, so we have one. All we have to do to copy this for the other is, because the arrays are designed the same, so just want to go ahead and Control C this, and instead of top 100 days, we actually want it to be top 100 all time. Now, the problem with this is obviously it's going to output both, right? We're going to have a 1 to 100, and then we're going to have a 1 to 100 again with different values of data. We don't want them both to show at the same time. Easy enough fix. We're going to use the state, and we're going to create a basic true-false variable here. In this case, I believe I called it current, yeah? And we're going to set current initially to true. And what we're going to do is when you click one of the column names, it's going to set it to true or false. We're going to define a function here called pointChange. Not the best name. I was really sucking on naming things when I did this project, guys. I'll be honest with you. And it's going to take in a value. And in here, it's going to check to see if the values are the same. Meaning, if it's true, there's no reason to go and set it to true again. But if it's not, go ahead and set it to false. We can go ahead and do a simple if this dot state dot current, and mind you, the value that we're passing in will be true or false, is not equal to the value. Go ahead and reset the state of current. So this dot set state. What are we setting? And this, it's going to be current, and set it equal to the value. Now, probably would have been cleaner to just make this current, save us some text, but it doesn't really matter. So that's the point of this function. Now, all we're going to do here is in our column, in our heading, we're going to go ahead and create a onClick event right here. So we're going to use onClick, set this equal to, and we're going to pass in a callback function that's going to run our event. So here we're going to say when the event gets launched, run our callback function. And oops, this is we're saying this dot pointChange. So true is going to be, we're going to set it off by displaying the recent one first. So pointChange true, and then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing, so put it for false for all time. Now, why are we doing this? Well, we're going to have it basically a variable that says, hey, if this is true, display this array. If this is false, display that array. That's how we're going to do it. And we're going to do that by just clicking on here and having a go at it. Now, next thing we want to do is change our values here ever so slightly. So top 100 of all time, we're just going to say current, throw an and. Basically, if this is a true statement, so if current is equal to true, go ahead and wrap that. It's going to display that. If this is true, it will display what's inside here. Now, excuse me, we want, this is the top all 100 time. This is going to be the false one. So if it's equal to false, it will display it. Now, if this is true, it's going to display this one. Let's go ahead and save it and make sure that everything's set up properly. Current is not defined. Oh, remember when we deconstructed our value here, we never added current. So instead of saying this dot state dot current, we said current, but I don't want to do that, so we're going to say current like so. Cool, so you'll see by default, this guy right here is displaying the top 30 days. But if we click here, you'll notice that it changed. But we don't have anything showcasing that. All we're going to do is have a little caret that shows up based on which one is being displayed. This is why we installed fontawesome.io icons, which coincidentally is the #1 Kickstarter, software Kickstarter of all time, raising like $1.1 million. I did a video about it. I encourage you guys to watch it. It's very inspiring. All right, so how do we use that? If you're not familiar with Font Awesome and how we're going to do this, we're going to do it exactly how we did this. We're just going to throw essentially an if statement in there and display an icon if it's true or if it's false. Right here, we're just going to put a little space, and we're going to say current, so if it's true. Oops, did the wrong, we need our curly braces, my apologies. If it's true, we are going to output class name, not class, right? Because we're working with React. And oops, in here this is going to be fa dash caret down dash caret dash down. And we'll go ahead and copy this. And instead of true, we just want it to be false, right? Just going to save that. Oh, and of course we have to import that to our application as well. So all we have to do for that is import fontawesome/css/ font-awesome.css. So it comes with CSS, Sass, all that jazz, whatever you want. So you'll notice now that this one's selected because we, by default, had this be the one that was selected. Now if we click here, you'll notice that it goes right here. It's gone. That's how we're keeping track of what's there. That's it, guys. That's it. That is the first React project out of the way. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I tried to do it as fast as I could. I apologize for some of the stutter steps along the way. I fat finger a lot of this stuff. I am enjoying React very much, so I hope you guys are as well. And don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and share. Support me on Patreon. If you feel like treating yourself, there's some affiliate links and some Bitcoin wallets, all that sort of stuff down in the description if you want to help me out in my Patreon. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much. Bye. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Special thanks to our sponsors, Dev Mountain. If you're looking for a coding bootcamp where tuition and housing is included, definitely check them out. Appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next video.